First of all, hello.
Hello,
My name is Linda.
my name is Kimochi.
Kimochi. As a second language speaker of Japanese, when I saw that your name was Kimochi, I thought that's a great name because it means comfortable, and when you're entertaining somebody, you want them to be happy and comfortable and relaxed, and when I was watching you, I was.
Oh, thank you so much. Yes, the Chinese characters I put, ki means a greeting or grateful, joyful, and the mochi means a Japanese dumpling.
Oh,
So-
yeah. But
so-
where are you from?
I live in Aichi Prefecture, in the middle of Japan, and every time I visit a lot of places like Tokyo,
Yeah,
Yokohama.
you do travel, don't
Mhm.
you? So, of course, the first question is to ask how you got started in Rakugo.
First of all, English is what I wanted to improve. English learning, no, speaking skills or writing skills is what I wanted to improve. And on the way, in the middle of the way to be a better speaker, I found English Rakugo. Now, as you can see, Rakugo performer can sit on the stage alone and create multiple characters and a lot of skits. So you can learn speaking. It's like I have a lot of speaking lessons alone. That's what in my place. There's technically, no less foreigners, who can speak English. So I have no chance, I have few chance to talk with someone who can speak English. So rehearsing Rakugo means improving English speaking skills for me.
Right. Which is kind of interesting because as an English teacher, one of the things that I think many English teachers want to do is focus on conversation. And you don't normally think of conversation being just one person or the conversation being one person speaking both parts of the
That's
conversation.
right. So yes, often most teachers say like you said, it's a little bit difficult to make a group pair to have a
One.
conversation during the class.
Right.
But you can do it alone by in Rakugoing.
But your English is really superb, and so is your pronunciation. So
Oh, really?
did you live
Thank-
abroad?
No. In my life, 8 days in total,
Okay.
and in the Philippines.
Oh, okay.
Yes, 2 times go abroad in the Philippines. Go to the Philippines, just 2 times.
I'm guessing then, if you wanted to do this as a way of learning English, you did not begin your Rakugo career speaking Japanese? Did you first do Rakugo in Japanese and then kind of transition to English?
Actually, before starting my English Rakugo, I didn't watch any Japanese Rakugo stories. Each and every single stories, I didn't watch them. And so first English and the second Rakugo. And in order to improve my Rakugo skills, I watched a bunch of Japanese Rakugo films.
All entertainers, whether you're an actor or a comedian, Rakugo, you look at who comes before you and you learn from them. And you have certain individuals who might inspire you more than others. So when you were looking at those films, when you were looking at other people's performances, is there one or two people who stood out to you, who you saw as, that's the kind of person I want to do, or that's the way I want to do it? And what about them would have been the inspiration?
It's like the idol, or the person that I want to be. I want to become like him or her.
Not just become like them, because they are an inspiration, right? Like some people maybe copy another person, but I think that the general idea is that you look at who comes before you and you learn from them, but you adapt those techniques and you make them your own. So it's not just someone who is your idol who you want to be like, but more someone who inspires you to be better at your own skill. Do you understand?
Oh, yes. In the Rakugo world, like I said, Yanagiya Kyotaro, he is a Japanese professional Rakugo performer. I think he has a lot of things that I need to improve or steal. And recently, I used to love Tom Cruise in the Western countries, movie star. Recently, my favorite is changed. Now that Tom Hanks is my favorite, and every time I watch him on DVD or somewhere, I'm always surprised at his eyes. It's hard to explain, but especially, have you ever watched Private Ryan?
Oh, yeah.
And at the very end of the scene, when he died, his eyes, the color of his eyes changed. I was surprised at the scene, and I wanted to get the skill, get the technique, and I don't know what to do, but that's what I was impressed with him.
Modern audiences are so different than the audiences who existed when Rakugo began. So two questions. How do you take an ancient storytelling form and make it interesting to modern audiences? And are there any of those other storytelling techniques from, history or from other countries that you have looked at and use in your performances?
Okay. About the first question, yes, Rakugo was born about 400 years ago in the Edo era. So the classical stories were based on the Edo cultures. So now that for the people these days, it might be pretty difficult to understand the cultural differences. So that's the very difficult point to convert to English one. Of course, for me, difficult to translate the script into English, and it also difficult for me to understand the culture itself, and to change something easier to understand for the people these days. So before completing the story, creating the story, I read a lot of books or learn Edo culture and imagine the situation and try to get easy words, easy words to describe. That's what I'm thinking about. And about the second question, now that last August I joined a 3-day workshop of English drama. And during the drama, Wicked was what we did.
Okay.
And so at that time, I thought I had a lot of things to learn from performing, standing on the stage, not sitting on the stage.
Yeah, right.
And I was surprised that the actors' voice, they can reach far away from the mind.
Yeah.
So I thought I need to train voice, and I think I need to have some voice training. And one
Yoga is good for that.
Oh,
I'm a yoga teacher.
yoga, really? Oh,
Sorry, go
then
ahead.
do I need to join your class?
Okay. It's a little far, but go ahead.
And another thing, stand-up comedy is what I've been thinking about recently. Like you see Rakugo stories, storytelling. Sometimes there are several parts that might make the audience feel bored or dull, because there's no laughing points
Right.
sometimes. But on the contrary, stand-up comedies, comedians put as many laughing points as
Right.
they can.
Yeah.
So, and the rhythmical and laughters pull another laughter. So
Right, it grows.
that's right. That's right. So I think that I need to learn those methods from stand-up comedy, and I'd like to put those tastes into my English regular stories.
So you said that the stories come from the Edo period, and so trying to translate those stories to a modern audience is a challenge. But I imagine also, today you have to compete with, television and movies and all kinds of entertainment, and those things are always fast, 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 fast. So the audience begins to expect things to happen much more quickly. But that is one of the things I noticed today was there are a lot of times in between the jokes where you expect the audience to wait. And later in the question and answer period, you said that you read the audience and that you have to read them and get a sense of the feeling so that you can adapt your own performance. So my question, I guess, is how often do you have to do that? Like, how often do you have to sense, okay, this is slowing down, I got to say something, but you have a script. So how can you combine those two things?
It's a difficult question, and that's the most exciting point while performing Rakugo. So all the audience are never the same. So each atmosphere different from each other. So that was I'm afraid of, but that was I'm excited with. So and some blank or pause is Rakugo. The big point that big advantage that Rakugo has. So maybe by using pause, I can take advantage of the pause to grow the laughter on the stage. So the pause and the atmosphere, that's what I do care while performing. And maybe that might not be the right question, a right answer. Yes, pause.
There is no
atmosphere.
right or wrong answer. You get to decide.
Thank you.
Speaking of comedy is a cultural thing. What Americans find funny, what Japanese find funny, what Europeans find funny can be so different. Today's audience was Japanese, but you have also performed in front of foreign audiences, and in fact, not just the Philippines, but you were saying that you performed in front of a military group?
Yes.
Yeah. So humor is really difficult for native speakers. And then on top of that, you have your style of humor is a pun, which is, you have to be so sharp. So how do you adapt the actual storytelling to the different audiences? Is that a hard question?
Yeah. In order to meet those demands, I always keep my mind. One thing that keep in my mind is I need to put 3 types of laughing points. One is laughter by taking some actions, like pretending to be a tiger or the macho man. And the second is the English word puns, or by using phrasal verbs or idioms. And the third is some quotation, some quotations like. So one day I have a chance to perform my Rakugo in front of one Canadian, of course, plus a lot of Japanese. And during the story, I put some famous phrase from Godfather. Go to the mattresses. Do you know the phrase "go to the mattresses" to be ready for the war? At that time, on the stage, I said, "Inkyo, it's time to go to the mattresses." And then only the Canadian laughed at the quotation.
Today as well. I forget what it was, but I was like, oh my God, that's hilarious. Everyone was silent. Yeah.
So for the foreigners or for the native speakers or for a variety of people, putting 3 types of jokes into my stories, that's what I care about.
But you must study all the time, because if you not only know those idioms and those cultural references, but you can use them in a way that makes people laugh, that means that you've got them exactly right. That's just remarkable.
Yes, so I need to get a lot of DVDs of famous movies or old movies, and I bought a lot of American jokes, and I read it a lot. Sometimes I don't understand what's going on, and I learned some of them. I try to show in front of my Japanese friends. It's like a market research. Market research is Japanese English. Market research is okay. Market research, and it's most Japanese. Not laughing. But one day, last 2 weeks ago in Fukui, I had a chance to show several American jokes in front of native speakers. They laughed a lot, like, I was surprised with the difference. The big cultural difference. So it means I need to learn more, both of Western culture and the Japanese culture at the same time. And but everyone has only 24 hours. So
have stories from other places as too. Like, do you have fairy tales? Do you have legends? Do you have personal anecdotes? Like, where do you and do you create the stories yourself, or are you taking something and kind of just rearranging it for your own performance?
My Kimochi to English Rakugo stories. Before that, Japanese Rakugo stories has basically 2 types. One is classical stories, and the other is modern stories. Modern stories started in the Showa era, and we know who created the story. But classical stories, we don't know who created them. And Rakugo itself, Japanese traditional entertainment, including Rakugo, such as kabuki, converted their stories with each other. So maybe there might be several stories coming from kabuki stories, and some of kabuki stories came from Rakugo stories, and even Grimm fairy tale. One of famous stories, the God of Death. The story came from one of Grimm fairy story. The original title is Death, just Death. Death. And in my case, I often create my original story, which come from a lot of things, from kid story, children's story, or it's a totally original. And maybe I pick up some ideas from some movies. So for me, anything could be the materials for my stories.
Well, that's like a stand-up comic, isn't it? Yeah. On your website, you say that audiences need to use their imagination to see what you are detailing. Again, back to the cultural thing. Japanese audiences are kind of preset. If you say, kabuki, an image comes into their head. But foreigners are not preset. Like you say kabuki to Japanese and the image comes to mind. If you say kabuki to a foreigner, maybe some of them don't even know what that is. So how do you overcome that advantage in order to get a mixed audience to envision what you want them to see?
First of all, for my own recitals, Domannaka Yosei, I always prepare some leaflet in which both of Japanese and English outlines, plot written.
Oh.
And then if you have some technical words or traditional words, or Japanese word that might be difficult to understand for foreigners, I highlight them and explain the meaning in English.
Oh, okay.
But it's difficult for me to explain anything on the stage like this today, So I need to show one or two stories, and I only the designated time, limited time. So sometimes, yes, for some people coming from another country, for them, it might be difficult to understand. But at the time, I try to choose easier stories to understand without any technical words or traditional words.
So do you want to talk about your upcoming events?
The first time to perform in Yokohama, the 31st Domannaka Yosei, my English Rakugo recital, is going to be held on Sunday, December 11th. Yes. And at the recital, I'm going to prepare 3 different stories, including one famous tear-jerking story.
Oh, no.
Tear-jerking story, yes.
So bring your tissues, right?
Oh, that's right. You need to bring that. Yes.
Okay. So at the end of the performance, when they go, is there something that you want them to remember in particular about your performance?
Little happiness and a little smirking, not smile, smirking.
Okay.
I like all the audience to remember what my performance, even in their home. Maybe they could take some bath in the bathtub. They might remember my performance and Kimochi was so funny and smirking. That's what I want.
Yeah.
That's what I want them to be.
That's what I can imagine. The next time somebody goes to eat a bowl of ramen, they'll be like, "Oh, I remember that joke that Kimochi-san said."
So that's what I like the word addictive. Addictive. My Rakugo's character, addictive.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, thank you so much. I
Thank
really
you so
appreciate
much.
it.
Thank you very much.